Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic 90s nerds to my channel, Slime and Slashers, where, yeah, we talk about everything from Nickelodeon slime to horror movie slashers, but plenty of stuff in between, like Stephen King books and movie adaptations, which is what we're talking about today.
Yes, yay!
Yay! And guys, if you didn't know who this lovely person is, she is Kat, and I am joined by her. Welcome, Kat.
Yay.
Kat is one of my favorite people in the entire world. If you guys are new here, she joins me on my channel every now and then, and specifically this year, every single month, to talk about Stephen King.
Yes, my favorite person.
Well, at least
You.
author. Oh, I thought you
Yes.
were going to say Stephen King's your favorite person. I was like, okay, your favorite author.
Yes, Kelsey's my favorite person to spend time with talking about my favorite author.
Yay!
And talking about horror movies and horror books. We have a lot of yes.
My light looks very weird, so it reminds me of a flashlight.
I do wish
me.
we would have been able to put like dry ice or something in today
For the mist.
For the mist.
Yes. I don't have any dry ice. If it was Halloween time, perhaps.
Right.
My dad and I have bought dry ice for our Halloween party, and it did look pretty cool. But just a fun fact about dry ice, you got to kind of look over it a lot or it'll stop smoking.
Really?
Yeah. I think you got to add water to it or something, or pour water on it for it to do the little like fog thing. Yeah, so you got to keep an eye on it just because the effect won't work on its
fact about dry ice.
Only someone who throws a Halloween party or someone who knows about dry ice for some other reason would know that. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. Today, specifically what we're talking about, and we are going to talk spoilers, just a quick, warning about that. I don't want you guys to be taken aback and by surprise and be like, oh my God, they're talking spoilers. So we're talking about two short stories. Yes, lots of spoilers. 2 short stories and the 2 adaptations of the same name. So the short stories that we'll be discussing, 1408 and The Mist.
Yes.
And technically The Mist is more of a novella. In fact, they sell it as a separate book.
Yes, I didn't even realize that. But for some reason, they have been selling a bunch of his novellas or short stories as standalone.
They have been.
So
yeah, I know Amy McCaw, she's an author. She's got a YouTube channel, like a booktube channel. Check out her channel. She wrote this book, Mina and Undead, but she just recently started to collect all these really cool, like very colorful Stephen King editions. And I noticed a lot of her editions that she bought were short stories as like a book. So I thought that was pretty neat. And The Mist is definitely one they've been selling.
I didn't even realize that it was standalone until I had gone into the bookstore. I was looking for something else. And when I saw it, I was like, I did not buy it right away. And then I was like, you know what? I really want it. Even though I had it as part of the collection of the Skeleton Crew, I still want it.
Well, it's easier to make little like tabs in your little book.
It is much thinner than the whole collection.
And easier to bring on the drive over a little than the big old collection. But yes, I used audiobook for both. So I actually didn't have, it's one of the few times I didn't have a physical copy. For 1408, I didn't. But I did use a digital e-copy for reading The Mist, and I listened along as well. But yeah, 1408, I strictly just listened to it, and it was enjoyable, the narration for both. In fact, Stephen King narrated 1408.
Oh,
yes.
And how did he do?
I think he did okay. It was no Michael C. Hall. So
or Willem Dafoe.
So guys, if you didn't know, we have been talking about other great narrations for Stephen King audiobooks in the past few months, like Willem Dafoe, she just mentioned. He narrated The Langoliers, which was a lot of fun because he was voicing little girls. He was voicing like crazy dudes, and it was marvelous. The little girl voice he did was hilarious. And also, he was doing like this punkish girl voice, like, what are you doing? Like, I can't even do it. The Willem Dafoe voice. He did
sounded like you were doing Valley Girl and punkish at the same time.
That's what he sounded like. So I kind of tried to.
You emulated that?
Yes, I was trying to channel his aura for what he did for those voices, or that voice in particular. So yes, that was a great narration for an audiobook, as well as the creme de la creme, Michael C. Hall for Pet Sematary. So good.
I missed out on that because
I
actually read the books.
Next time you've got to, like, if you ever reread it one more time, even though I know you've already reread it quite a few times, but the next time you've got to try.
To yes, I'll have to.
And you could read along.
I love him, so I think I would enjoy it.
Yeah, I think you would love it. You'd be like, oh my God, where has this been all my life? This narration. That's how good it was. So anyway, today, we're talking about the 1408 story read by Stephen King. It was all right. I mean, this is his story. He knows the inflections and stuff, but it just wasn't a Michael C. Hall.
Right.
And I just had listened to that, so it was kind of bad to go from that to that. I was like, ugh. Sorry, King.
Yeah, I'm almost curious now. I wonder how many books he has actually read himself.
Yeah, I do wonder, especially, I think maybe this one was a good one for him because it was shorter. 1408, the story is very short, especially when you compare it to what they did with the movie. And guys, we are going to jump into the 1408 short story first, and we'll also kind of dive into the movie as we go. So both the 1408 movie and the Mist movie, they're both from 2007, by the way, guys.
I know.
How funny is that? We didn't mean to pick both of those, and they released in the same year.
It was not planned at all. In fact, I think 1408 was released first.
Yeah,
and
in
then
the year.
Yes, and the Mist was later in the year.
I'm getting some extra sun in here. Sorry, I wanted to open the blinds. It's very dark outside, but
it's gloomy today.
It is. It feels gloomy in here.
We had a little rain today,
and it's steamy now.
Yes,
in New Orleans, we're broadcasting from New Orleans right now, so hopefully you guys are not too hot wherever you guys are. I know we've got Arlene visiting us and saying hello from England, Manchester.
Hey, she's across the pond.
Yes.
Hey, Arlene.
I wish I was over there too. I love England, so. Thank you for watching, Arlene. We also have DJ here. Thank you so much. Cool Gamer. The Rockford Project is back. You were with us last time. Thank you so much, Rockford Project.
Yes,
How
we
you
really
doing?
Appreciate y'all coming out on a Sunday to spend some time with us.
And we're not talking about The Mist right away, but we will jump into The Mist very soon. But The Mist is the Rockford Project's favorite Stephen King story. I do think it was a decent story. I haven't read a lot of his short stories though, but I've read the ones from the collection you gave me, Full Dark, No Stars, which I very much enjoyed.
Excellent collection. If you have not read it, I would highly recommend it.
Yes, I recommend it too. It's very, very good. But yeah, we'll get to our thoughts on The Mist very soon. But let's jump into 1408 Kat. How do you want to begin?
Well, first of all, just to let you know, 1408 is part of Stephen King's collection called Everything's Eventual, 14 Dark Tales. The protagonist is a writer, Mike Enslin, which I was thinking about it. We've read a couple of books this year.
Has it been every flippin'
not every one of them, but kind of like a similar theme with them, and we'll kind of talk about once we get into it. But our protagonist is Mike Enslin. He's a writer. He's writing all of these books about haunted places. But the ironic part about it is he supposedly stays at these places. He writes about them. Some of them are in a graveyard, some are at a hotel. But he doesn't even believe. And he kind of like makes up the story based around whatever whatever was supposed to take place there, the situation that took place. So if somebody was murdered there, he kind of, weaves that story into whatever he supposedly experiences there. And then he comes upon room 1408 and he wants to go visit there, but they don't want him to visit there because apparently there are a lot of people who have taken their life. They've committed suicide in grisly ways. And people who do actually survive staying in the hotel room end up with problems after they leave.
Yes, that could affect them for the rest of their life.
And some of them do die of natural causes. It's not always a horrific death, but there are natural causes. And so the room is cursed, the room itself is cursed. There is no ghost there. So it's just an evil room. We never really find out what it is.
What causes it. I do wish we had a little bit more backstory. Like, why is
that's
the
what
room...
I put right here. What made the room evil? That haunts me. That haunts me.
That haunts me too. Like, that's the most intriguing question.
I am a questioner by nature. That's my tendency. And so, of course, I'm like, why is it evil? What happened? It couldn't be because the first person that killed himself made it evil, because the room made the first person kill themselves. So something, what happened? But also, and I forgot to look at this on my recent trip to New York, I'm always fascinated about hotels that have many floors to it to see if they do really skip 13.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
They do. Well, technically there is a 13th floor. They
call it 14. Yeah.
But anyway, this one had... The room 1408 is actually technically on the 13th floor of the hotel. And if you add up the numbers 1408, it equals 13.
13 has such a bad
Dun, dun,
rap.
dun.
I was born on the 13th, on a Friday the 13th, and I think things have turned out just fine.
That's her lucky number, actually.
It is, actually.
So anyway, Mike in our story only lasts in the room for about 70 minutes. He ends up having some really bizarre, vivid, hallucinations, I guess would be about the best way to say it. And yeah, it's kind of a roller coaster of a ride. Let's put it this way. I myself am afraid of like haunted houses and rooms and things like that. Like I like reading about it and I love watching movies about it. But personally, I don't want to be in a house that had anything violent happen there. In fact, I'm always grateful that I built my house. It was not built on a Indian burial ground.
No poltergeist.
There was nothing on it that was, it was ordinary piece of land, okay? As ordinary
as far as you know. As far as you know.
As far as I know.
Yes.
Now, of course, if somebody comes to my house, they will see a pet cemetery because we have lots of pets, and we do bring our pets home when when they go to their little afterlife. But so if somebody did dig up our yard,
they would find some skeletons.
They would find a lot of the skeletons of our pets over the years. But needless to say, I am not afraid of my own house ever.
Yeah.
Because nothing happened there to warrant that. In fact, when we first moved into our house, we didn't even have street lights on the streets.
Oh, really?
Yes. I mean, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. That's how dark it would get out there because it's a rural area. I mean, we're in a subdivision, but it's kind of a rural area. And at the time, my oldest son, who happens to be 12 days older than Kelsi.
Yeah. We're very close.
Yes, in age. When we first moved there, he was 10.
Wow.
And we used to play hide and seek in the house. My husband,
and so that wouldn't freak
little
you out.
Barry, and I know because we would hide in the house and it would be pitch black and you wouldn't even know. Like like if I was in some place playing hide and seek that was creepy, yes, I think I would be freaked out if they didn't come find me right away. Or otherwise, I would bust out of the door, but out of the closet or whatever. But anyway, when he goes down the hall and looks at the door and it's crooked, I would have left. Of course, we wouldn't have had a story, but I would have said.
We talk about how we wouldn't be in horror movies all the time.
No, we would not. I would be like, Mr. Olin, I totally accept your offer because what does Mr. Olin try to tell him?
Don't stay in there, bitch. I mean, in the movie, Samuel L. Jackson, he's like, mother effer, don't stay in there.
Right.
But yeah. I'd be like, buy me some Mets tickets. Like, give me that whiskey or whatever the hell.
Well, yeah. And then,
bourbon,
but of course,
it is.
He brushes it off because he thinks that he's allowed Mr. Olin to get into his head and kind of put, what is that? When you
like a preconceived notion or a superstition, like, oh, he's kind of making me freak out here. He's getting to me. He's really kind of worked me.
Right. And he's planted a seed. And so like,
his mind's running away with it. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Your imagination gets
carried
away.
No, it's real and it's bad. So no, I would not be staying there. I don't care. I wouldn't be writing these books. I wouldn't be staying there. It's hard not to go in comparisons to the movie right away because there's just so much I feel like the movie expands on, like why he's writing,
right, and
which I love.
We will, and that's the thing. That was one of the things that I think is so interesting is that you get backstory from Mike more in the movie than you do the book.
So how many pages is 1408? Because I only had the audio, so I had no idea how many pages I was reading.
It starts on 365 if you count the little introduction by Stephen King, and then it ends, let's see, it ends on 403.
God, it felt even shorter than that when I was listening to it. And so much time in the story is spent talking to the manager of the hotel. I mean, it felt like the story was that.
But if you think about it, it kind of makes sense because he was only in there for 70 minutes. That's not a long time, but a lot happened in the 70 minutes, like in his mind, I guess you would say. I loved the introduction of this story. I loved how they took the introduction of the short story and John Cusack's plays, Mike Eslin in the movie, he actually speaks it in dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught that or not.
I did.
But I love how it kind of makes me now kind of think about staying in hotel rooms, now about how it's kind of creepy if you think about it. They're naturally creepy places, is what he says.
Yes.
Don't you think? I mean, how many people have slept in that bed before you? How many of them were sick? How many were losing their minds? How many were perhaps thinking about reading a few final verses from the Bible in the drawer of the nightstand beside them, and then hanging themselves in the closet beside the TV? Brr. In any case, let's check in, shall we? I was just like, oh,
that's a good intro. Great intro. Yeah.
So anyway, just a lot of things happen. What were some of your favorite things that happened in the room?
Well, I just love how like the perspective was all off, and the paintings. I really did like the paintings quite a bit, and how those appeared off to him, and just a mind, not warp, but like a mind F. like it effed with his mind. Just, you never know what was real or what was not. Like, especially at first when he wasn't believing that it was happening. So lots of things, just little things. What did you like?
I loved when he first went in and he was looking at the breakfast menu, and first the menu's written in French, and then he looks at it again and it's written in Russian. Then he looks at it again and it's in Italian. Phone calls too. And then all of a sudden it's a wolf eating a boy's leg and the boy's screaming or whatever. I like the paintings as well. I mean, I thought that was really creepy. If I would see a painting and it looks one way, and then the next time I look at it, there's something gruesome going on in it because they were kind of graphic, I think I would be freaked out.
I would definitely be freaked out.
The phone freaked me out as well, especially how it kept saying the different things that it was saying. And I was thinking, okay, that must be the people that were dying.
Yeah.
Referring to that. And just to give you a reference, I love finding out if there's any connection with anything else. And the phone was actually connected to Dark Tower.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. The gravelly voice on the other end of the phone reciting those numbers and stuff. There is a scene in the second book of the Dark Tower called The Drawing of the Three. And the scene is where Eddie Dean smuggles cocaine past the airport security with the help of Roland, who's the last gunslinger. So that is a reference to that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Which I think is like really
That's a great connection.
Really, really cool.
Very cool.
Of course, the room just kind of starts deteriorating and melting, and he has a really rough time in that room. And then he decides to set his Hawaiian shirt, which happens to be a good luck shirt. He sets it on fire, and it kind of snaps him back into reality. And the only reason he doesn't burn to death is because he makes it out of the room. Because I think what he does is he jolts the room for a second, to where I think the room is surprised.
Yeah.
So he gives him,
the room's like, oh, I wasn't
he's distracted
that.
For a second, the room. And then he runs out, and then somebody puts ice on him in the ice bucket, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
funnily enough, I think you're not supposed to put ice on burns, but you need to do something in this case.
And basically scarred for life from that point on, because
physically and mentally.
Yes, physically and mentally. It ends with him basically, I think he gives up writing. He doesn't really go places. He doesn't have a phone in his home anymore because he can't stand the phone and all that happened with that. I found the story suspenseful. I found it tense. There was moments where I didn't want to continue, and this is the second time I've read it, but it's been a while.
Yeah,
quite a while. I also felt like the room was claustrophobic.
Oh yeah,
like I just felt like it was pressing in on me because it was pressing in on him. If you talk about the colors, lots of oranges and yellows.
Right.
I love haunted places is what I put, but I would never want to be in one.
You like the idea of
I like the idea of it.
You don't like
and
the actual place.
And I go to haunted houses because I think they're thrilling and fun until I actually have to go through it. Because
Yeah.
I know once I go through it, I have to get out of it. It's not like I can go backwards.
Yeah.
But I think to myself as I'm going through, I mean, clearly I would hope nothing would happen to you.
Oh, yes,
in a
yes.
haunted house, but
what would you give the rating of the story itself?
The story itself, probably about a 4.
Yeah, I would give it about a 4. I debated doing a 3.5 round up to 4, only because, see, it's hard when you read a story that you've already seen the movie for. I knew it's been many years since I saw the movie,
Right.
but I actually think the movie is better in this case, because personally, this is just my opinion, because I feel like it fleshes out so much more. And in fact, I've got this really high praise about this from my friend Nathaniel Toll. He's the author of Pumpkin Cinema. I've mentioned him many times.
Yes.
So if you guys are longtime viewers, you will be no stranger to his name. But yes, my friend Nathan, aka Nathaniel Toll, buy his book Pumpkin Cinema. He literally texted last night, was like, cool announcement that you guys are covering 1408. 1408 is quite possibly my favorite horror movie from the past 15 years, and so I hope it entertained the hell out of you both. And I mean, it's not my favorite over the last 15 years, but I think it's so high of praise, and I did really like it. I do think they did do such a good job at making stuff happen in the room, and also giving a bigger story to Mike.
Well, and I think part of the reason you probably feel that way is because Stephen King originally wrote this story as part of showing you how to write a draft in his book on writing.
I think he even says that.
And he ended up kind of finishing the story, but I don't think it was ever meant for it to be a story that was really fleshed out, kind of
like
thing.
A basic story that leaves you hanging.
But I do feel like reading it again, it kind of reminds me a little bit of The Shining. You know how the hotel takes on a personality of its own? Well, the room did. And remember, there's a room in the Overlook Hotel that takes on, you know, a personality, and things happen in there because of the deaths and all that. So I can't wait for us to read The Shining, and then I might revisit the short story again and just see if there's any comparisons about it. Because think about it, there's a writer in both stories.
That is
You've got a haunting in both that kind of can decide on how the person is, are they going to survive it or not? I mean, it is quite possible that Mike Ensling could have died in that room if he could not have gotten out once he put his shirt on fire. You know, I mean, he really could have died. You know, the other thing, and we'll make the comparisons when we do the movie, is the fact that so many people had jumped from the room. Mike,
I like how the window played such a big part in the movie. It definitely played a huge role in the movie.
It did, but in the story it did not. So Mike would not have been able to jump out the window, which I don't even think that would have helped him if he was on fire, because, you know, he would have had wind and it would have
been a flaming like ball, like landing like of human, landing on the cement.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as a story. It's creepy. I think when I stay in a hotel in the future, I'm gonna be conscious of it.
I don't want to be conscious of it. I stay in hotels all the time. Like, I don't want to be thinking of this. Benjamin is here. Hey. Benjamin, thank you so much. Kat's so excited.
I am. You really made my day. I'm so excited about my
Thank
bookmark.
you, Benjamin. So, guys, our friend Benjamin, he's in the chat right now. He gave us bookmarks.
I know. It's awesome. We just finished reading and watching Pet Sematary. And this is from the original book cover, I believe.
Yes. So we love it. Oh, you're so sweet.
You are super sweet. But look at what Benjamin said.
Yes, he says his favorite part of 1408 that has stuck with him the most is the description of the bizarre and unsettling things captured on the recorder.
Yes.
There is something creepy to me about weirdness captured on tape. I totally agree, and I think that's a nice little touch.
Well, yeah, because in the book, in the short story, remember, Mr. Olin wants to know what's on it, and the lawyer or the book editor wouldn't let him have it or whatever, and he wanted to keep it even though it was disturbing everything that was said on it. But he wanted Mike to be able to hear it at some point, you know, to decipher it. But it really is, you know.
That's a good point here. There's a character in it called Grady, which, you know, is also the name of the character.
Yes.
Who is called Grady in the story? I don't remember.
In the story
of
1408, I don't know.
It wasn't the hotel guy. It's not his first name.
Not. No, his name. Oh, let me think, because his name is Gerald in the. Was Grady the person that
the ice bucket guy, or the? Do you remember which character's named Grady? Because I just read this and don't.
But now that you're saying it, there is a Grady in. I remember the Grady in. Well,
of course, The Shining. Grady is very important. Mr. Morningstar is here. Hey, how you doing? Happy Sunday. He says, I saw and loved both films, but I haven't read the stories. Well, I feel like 1408 is a lot shorter of a story and more
Yes.
compact, whereas
Well,
the film expands, like as I've been
I
saying,
don't think it could
so
have been.
much
I don't think it could have been made into a film
without it being
without
expanded.
it having. And I think they did a pretty good job of that.
I do too. I think they really made the room so disturbing, and I love how they added the whole daughter aspect a lot, quite a bit.
Yes.
I love that because it made Mike not just kind of a cynical ass. It made him. It makes sense that he was like that. It made him just more sympathetic. In the book, I feel like he was more, smarmy. Not
Yes.
schmarmy,
Okay.
smarmy.
They're saying that one of the guests, he believes, was named Grady.
someone who like killed themselves in the room or died in the room from some reason. Okay, so somebody who was a victim of the room, maybe.
Good catch.
I think that's what he means by one of the guests.
Yes.
The previous guests in the room. But yes, I don't know, because I don't remember the ice bucket person. I don't think that was Grady.
No. But I do want to say there was a little bit of foreshadowing in here. I liked in the book, before we move on to the movie. Mr. Olin tells him at the beginning that, Mike stands up and he grabs his overnight case and he's like, I don't want you to worry about, when I'm in the room 1408. And he says, but you will, Olin, you will. Olin said, you will, because there are no ghosts in room 1408 and never have been. There's something in there and I felt it myself, but it's not a spirit presence. And then at the end of the story, when it's finishing, he says, the closest he had ever come to articulating what he does remember about his 70 very odd minutes in 1408 was on one of those walks. It was never human, he told the incoming waves in a choked, halting voice. Ghosts. At least ghosts were once human. The thing in the wall, though, that thing. So it was like almost...
It was like a demon or some entity, or just... That's what I took from that.
Yes. But I want to know
what it is, exactly. That does bother me. Like, what is it?
Yes.
What caused it all?
Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it
too. It's just like the movie, there's so much more context.
Yes.
That's why I like the movie a lot. And it's hard to rate the story as highly in my mind as the movie.
So let's talk about the story. About the movie.
Let's talk about it. From 2007, as we said. And I can see you've got the ratings and the director because you're on the ball. And I am not.
I like all the production aspect of it. I like the actor part of it.
I like that too. But I'm just a slacker.
Well, no, you're not. You've been awfully busy.
Well, you have too, Miss New York. But so thank you for finding these facts for us. Tell us about this movie.
Well, the director is a director I've never heard of. He's a Swedish film director called Mikael Hafström.
That sounds right.
I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. The ratings for this movie are very high. Both of them were high, actually. IMDb 6.8 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes 79%, and Google users 88%. Which I think is really good for a horror film.
It is. Stephen King's movies tend to get a little better reviewed than other horror films.
Some not more always, than others.
Not
I was
always.
Going to say
1408.
1408 is one of the ones in our magazine that we have that is considered a good adaptation,
and it should
from a story.
Yes.
Mike Enslin is played by John Cusack, who I happen to love as an actor.
He's been acting
since
anything.
Yeah, he's been acting since 1983.
I used to be obsessed with that movie.
Well, 16 Candles was mine. I love that he was in 16 Candles. He started his career in that coming-of-age dramedies. 16 Candles, Say Anything was the one where he was holding up the box, right?
Yes.
The boom box.
I love that one.
Of course, Gerald Olin is played by Samuel L. Jackson, who's another one of my favorites. He's been acting since 1972.
Wow.
He actually, I think he's a wonderful actor. He has been in a multitude of awesome films. Okay. He really started to get popular when he was collaborating with Spike Lee on quite a few films. He's made several appearances in Quentin Tarantino's films.
So many
my
great
favorite
movies,
is Pulp Fiction that he was
Fiction's
in with John
great.
Travolta. And believe it or not, both of these men actually ended up working on a movie again, another Stephen King film called Cell.
I haven't seen that one.
Yes, I thought it was a good book, and the movie's fine. It was entertaining. It would be something I would watch.
My friend Crystal over at Fiber Artsy, I think she just reviewed Cell, and she said usually people it's not their favorite, but she really enjoyed it.
It's kind of like what you would consider almost like in the zombie genre, because basically your cell phone turns you into like a raging maniac.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, kind of like a fast zombie situation. But I don't know. I am excited about these two actors being in it. I think they did a wonderful job.
I think they did a fabulous job.
Honestly.
Especially like, Cusack portraying like he's like losing his mind. He's like, what's happening? I don't know what's going on. Like, is this really happening, or is this just me going crazy? And I think another pro about the daughter being a part of it, like, is it his grief taking over? Is it like him seeing something he wants to see? So it leaves room in the character's mind for there to be doubt in his mind. Like, am I really experiencing this, or is this something manifesting because of I'm upset,
right?
Or this is bringing a lot to the surface? I don't know. I feel like it adds extra layers.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, I liked that we got a little more backstory into him as to why he ended up writing these stories. Now, compared to the book, I mean, to the short story, we never learn if Mike Enslin ever wrote anything literary. We just know that he wrote these bestseller books.
Right.
What I liked about the movie and what made me think about it being something similar to some of the other books that we've read so far, especially Misery, The Dark Half, and we'll see like in The Shining, is in the movie 1408, he was a serious writer. And he can't write seriously since the death of his daughter. So he writes these
like pulpy, not pulpy, but books, like lighter for him to write.
Exactly.
Stuff
and
that he doesn't believe in.
Yeah, something he doesn't believe in, but he's making money off of it. And, he's struggling. He's in his own personal hell. He doesn't believe that any of these places are haunted. He's very cynical about that. But I think because he's in his own personal hell, he's in his mind, being tortured, it makes him he has to finally come to terms with his daughter's death. Is there an afterlife? Because he feels like he and his wife lied.
Yes, that's a big part of the book too.
And so there's that struggle about that. And I think he writes the haunted books because even though he says he doesn't believe, I think he's hoping that something will happen
to make him
and
believe.
It will make him believe, like to make him prove that there is an afterlife,
and they didn't
so
lie.
He can feel better about his daughter not just being in limbo somewhere.
Right.
That's how I kind of took it. But
if I was him in the room and the daughter like appeared to me, would that make me feel better or worse? Because I mean, you literally see her die again in the movie.
Well, and also too, she's asking for help, and she doesn't want to be alone.
Yeah,
but
and
is
it
that
really,
a manifestation?
He even said, "You're not my daughter," but was she? Or no, it was like a demon messing with his mind.
Maybe so, because remember, ultimately, what does the room want you to do? The room wants you to die.
Yeah,
because I even put that the room has a life of its own that preys on people and then eats them up. Basically through their death. Like so, they don't want to let them go.
The room was trying to manipulate him into feeling so sad and depressed that he would go through with it finally. That is
what I would think. Yeah. That is what I would think. So I do think the movie 1408 is more of a movie about grief and with religious undertones and thinking about the afterlife.
Much more than the story.
Yes, the story itself is, someone who's making a buck off of what is the term I want to say?
Oh, sorry.
Like you take something that people believe in and you kind of just, I don't know what the word is, but it's like he's almost trying
preying on people's beliefs.
Yes.
Yeah, like, on the idea that there could be something.
Because what I liked about the movie was the part when he was staying at that hotel with the husband and wife, and they were trying to tell him all about the stuff, and he's like, yeah, can I just have my key, kind of thing. It's like those people really believe that there was something there,
right? And he was cynical about it.
And he was cynical, and it's sort of like, yeah, whatever kind of thing. So it's almost like he had to have this happen to make him realize
there are things.
Yeah, that there are things. I did like how he actually got to see the ghosts. I thought that was really well done. How he sees the ghosts and they're climbing out the windows.
I like that too.
And
it almost looked like a recorded, like he saw them like flickering and like he was watching a movie.
Yes,
it almost seemed like that, and that's cool. It's like the room is playing back what happened. Like it's projecting it. I like how that was kind of shown in the way the ghosts were portrayed, if that makes sense.
Well, I liked also too how the room did come alive. The clock starts the countdown, which I thought was like in your face.
Yes,
like you've got 60 minutes. You're only gonna last 60 minutes.
I liked how the room went through all these like different temperature changes. Like not only hot, because you get the hotness in the story, but then it got arctically cold too, which I loved as well, because he's sitting there like freezing under his jacket, and he had to make a little fire. And I think there's foreshadowing in the movie as well, and I think little instances of the fire is kind of like the little tease of like what's going to end up happening to the room. It's going to be engulfed.
Yes. I liked also the seeing the relationship with the wife. I liked seeing the relationship with him going out and surfing and then coming back to that.
I like how he thinks he escaped.
Yes.
Yeah, too. And also it made us question, like, did it even happen?
Yes.
So it messed with the viewer. It was like a little extra thing that messed with the viewer. Like, did any of that hotel stuff even happen?
Right.
After the surfing incident, we circle back to that. That was genius. But also I really liked, to go back to the wife, I thought that was a lot deeper. Like, again, it's just a richer character. Do you know, I didn't make a note of it, who wrote the screenplay for the movie?
I didn't look that up.
I'm going to look it up right now.
Yeah, look it up, because I did not. I wanted to say that the paintings were different in the movie than they were in the book. They still kind of came alive, I liked the fact that, like, you saw the stain on the floor, and that was because wasn't it close to the picture with the water? I liked all of that, how it all played into it when everything would come alive. I loved how the room kind of deteriorated. It was sort of like, I love that. It was sort of like a metaphor for the deterioration of his mind.
Yes.
Yes. So I was just like that. He is crumbling in his mind, the way the room is crumbling, and the room is doing everything in its power to destroy this man.
So 3 people are credited as working on the screenplay for 1408, the movie.
Oh.
Matt Greenberg, Scott Alexander, and Larry Krasinski. Krasinski. Whatever the hell. Can you say it?
Kara Zawinski.
There you go. That's better than me.
I don't know if that's correct.
And then, of course, the short story is attributed to King, but he obviously didn't work on the screenplay. I was just wondering if he, not always is the writer the one to flesh it out, but I thought perhaps there was so much added. I thought maybe he had something to do with it, but no.
Well, this is one of his favorite short stories, and it's one of his favorite adaptations.
So he
from
likes
the stories.
it.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Which I was going to point that out because it's in our magazine that we have together. I mean, there was just so many aspects of it, and I just think this was one of a story of his that can show, like, one of the things that's hard about Stephen King's books being adapted for film or television is that a lot goes on in a person's mind.
Yes.
This was perfect because you could visually show what he was seeing and how it was affecting him mentally, in my opinion. So that's why I thought it really worked well, what they could do with it. But I have our handy dandy little book here.
That magazine has
this
been
magazine
invaluable.
I'm telling you, I love this.
I'm so glad I gave it to you.
I love it. But yes, it is considered number 11 in movie adaptations that are really, really great,
according to this magazine's best King adaptation specifically.
Yes.
So it's in there in that. How many top 15 you said, or top?
I think it's top 20.
Top 20. Okay.
Yeah. So it's number 11. Yeah, top 20. Number 11. King's favorite short story is also one of his choice film adaptations. 1408 is the room in New York City's Dolphin Hotel, which I did look that up to see if it was a real hotel. It's not.
You could have visited if it was real.
Well, yeah, but I didn't read it. But I didn't read it until after I got back. That's supposed to be sinister. 56 people have either committed suicide or died of natural causes while staying there. Mike Enslin, a skeptic author who investigates hauntings, determined to spend the night in 1408, proves it's just tall tales used to dupe tourists. He ignores Samuel L. Jackson's character, Mr. Olin, to opt for a different room. And no sooner does he check in than he realizes that he may become number 57. The ghosts of room 1408 visit him, and they're not of the friendly variety. Yeah, because remember the guy with the chainsaw?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I just love the part where he looks across the way and he thinks he's going to be able to get help from the person across the way.
And it's him.
And then he
is so
sees the
creepy.
killer behind him. I was like, that is so awesome.
And also it was awesome how across the way it was like in shadow. But then when he started to like mock his same movements, I was like, this is so creepy. It was so well done.
It was. And then he saw the killer behind him.
Mhm.
That's what I thought. And then he turns around and it's there. So as the film progresses, we watch Mike become completely unhinged, especially after they torment him with the tragedy that destroyed his marriage, with the death of his daughter, which according to something I read, she drowned. So I'm wondering if him surfing was like...
She died of cancer in the movie.
In the movie, but I don't know. Somebody said she had drowned. I don't know where I read that. Oh, right here. We'll go back to that. As if the premise weren't eerie enough, 1408 was released on Friday the 13th.
Oh,
but that didn't scare their audiences away. The film grossed $132 million, and I think it had a budget of 25. So that's really good.
Yeah.
Although King ranks 1408 as one of his favorite adaptations, he does have one small critique. There were things about the 1408 screenplay that I thought were a little bit wonky. Actually, he explained there's a part where you brought in the main character's sad relationship about how his daughter had died. She drowned, and he was kind of looking for an afterlife, a la Houdini. But
she didn't
she
drown,
had
though.
cancer.
So he's wrong there.
Right.
Or he's remembering wrong or something.
I thought, well, this seems a little off the subject, but it was great in the movie. That's what
I thought it really added to it.
But then
personally.
I also read that the 2007 adaptation actually had 3 endings.
Oh.
Yes. None of which matched the stories. The discarded 2 involved Mike dying inside room 1408, which he survives in the theatrical release, which is what we saw. In 2020, John Cusack offered up his own 4th closing scene. I always thought there was another version of 1408 where he could wake up back in the room and continue on. That's just getting into that Stephen King headspace. That could have been a fun thing to do, but it never came up.
So what do you mean? Like it burns, but he still wakes up and everything's like he's living it over again?
Yes.
Like a Groundhog Day, but in 1408.
Right.
Over and over.
Then I don't know if this was also a discrepancy that I found in this book. Kelsi had given me this book as a gift. And I thought this was kind of interesting because it would have been like almost like inspiration, but it actually happened after he wrote the story. It says in a talk he was given at a university in Vermont, King talks about having just written the short story 1408. He recounts that room 1402 of the Park Lane Hotel in New York City inspired the story after he stayed there and learned from the bellboy that the room he was in was where the actor Gig Young had committed suicide in the closet. The truth is that the bellboy, who King described as the world's oldest, was mistaken. 3 weeks after Gig Young's wedding in 1978, Gig Young shot his new wife, Kim Schmidt, and then killed himself in their condo apartment in the Osborne Apartments on West 57th Street in New York.
So the guy got it wrong. The bellhop got it wrong.
Yes.
But still inspiring nonetheless.
Right. Inspiring and nonetheless. And then I think this is where I saw a mistake in here. And I'm like, I don't really quite understand it. It says I see what it was. It was the film maintains the feel of King's work, but the filmmakers decide to alter the story's ending. In the original short story, Cusack's character, Mike Enslin, dies in a fire. In the film, however, Enslin survives. So I think they made a mess up right there.
I think they did too. Yeah, because he doesn't die.
He doesn't die. In fact, I even went back and reread the paragraph to make sure that maybe he was not like.
So this has and then King's own quote has a mistake.
I'm just wondering if this right here is meaning there was an altered ending for the real story. I think audiences didn't like the fact that he died from burning to death.
Like, they wouldn't have liked that.
No.
No, so they were like, we can't have that ending.
I do think it's interesting that they do alternate endings like that, because then they
too.
can kind of feel out which ones they think.
With test audiences or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
So what did you rather? Did you rather the ending of the book, the story, or did you rather the ending in the movie?
I actually rather the movie. I rather the movie about a lot of I just think it was so fleshed out. Like, I don't agree with King how he said that it came out of left field. It was kind of wonky about the daughter. I love that. I thought it added so much more than just reading about this guy who I wouldn't have cared about, who was just an ass.
Right.
Like, because without knowing the backstory, Mike Enslin is an ass.
Well, you almost
in the story
think,
and in the movie.
And in the story, I almost feel like you got what you get what you get, because
he warned you.
It's karma.
He warned you, like, so hardcore.
He warned you, and also too, you were so arrogant to think that it wasn't going to affect you. And I even liked when Olin was saying, because you're not a believer, he knew he wasn't a believer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there was a head rolling down the hall, you would miss it because you don't believe it. So if you don't believe it, you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
But this, you're going to see. You're going to feel it. You're going to see it. You're going to taste it. It's all going to happen. You know, I did like that they didn't have the bars on the window, and that Mike gets out. Like, he tries to get to the next room, he can't.
And it's just endless
and
wall.
when it goes
I love
out,
that.
you can see it. I like how, the woman is climbing over to jump out as he's trying to get in. I like the window crashing on his fingers when he had his fingers
And that's
there.
when he really started to freak out. Yes. When it crashed on his fingers. He's like, I'm hurt. I'm ready to leave. So yeah, that's when things really escalated. But the ending, to go back to your question, I like the ending of the movie because then you get the tape player playing the part with the girl, and the wife hears it, and it's not all in his head.
Yes.
It's really real, and it's impactful because the wife, it kind of leaves you questioning, like, what does the wife think now? What is their conversation going to be after that tape turns off?
Right.
I like that.
Although our question that we have as to what made the room evil isn't answered in the movie also.
It isn't. There's a big thing. And also, like, what does the girl appearing and her voice being on the recorder mean? An evil entity using her voice? Was it really her for a moment? Was she allowed to appear for the room's own
I think the room
beings?
knows what... I think the room knows what's going on with the person who's in the room.
No, I do. I think that too.
Because,
but the question is, was it an apparition created by the room, or did the room allow her to appear to manipulate him to kill? I think it was an
apparition.
You don't think it was her?
No, that's because the father comes. Remember, his father materializes.
So that's not his father either.
I don't think so.
You don't think it's the father or the girl. No. You think it's an apparition,
essentially
created by the room.
Yes, I think so. I mean, what do you guys out there
think? What do you guys think?
I mean,
do you think it was actually his daughter in his arms, or do you think it was just a manifestation, like a cheap copy made by the room? A copy, like, to fool him, to manipulate him?
I think it's the room. The only reason I say that is because the room allows him... Like, it opens him up. He becomes vulnerable somehow and opens him up, because then he can see all the apparitions of people who have died there. He sees the killer. It's playing so many tricks on his mind.
I just don't remember if he touches the dad. He touches the girl. He touches his daughter, like he holds her. Does he touch his father? I know he bends down to talk to him.
Yeah, but remember the scene where
no one else
wants to go into the refrigerator, and we see that it's regular stuff in the refrigerator, but that's not what he sees.
Yeah.
So whatever he's cradling and
might be
hugging,
nothing.
We don't see him hugging. Like, so I guess you have to decide, since we didn't see what he was really doing. But how many times in the movie did they cut away and really show you what you actually was happening, but what he was seeing?
Right.
And so I kind of think he carries a lot of guilt. There was a relationship that was not explored with his dad, but I think there must be some kind of guilt with that.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah.
I think he has so much guilt with his daughter because they made her believe, and he even says that to her, like, we can't tell her these stories because we don't know for a fact. And then she dies, and then he's bitter, and he doesn't believe there's a God, so that's what I think. I don't know.
I don't know. Very fascinating that, like, that movie came out of that story. I really love the movie, and if I had to pick one, I know, I'm sorry, bookish friends, I would pick the movie over the story, but the story was still good, entertaining.
Yes. Yes,
definitely
and
worth
very
reading.
different, because even though they did refer to source material for the bones of the movie, I mean, they basically use the source material for the bones, the like foundation.
Yes.
But they went ahead and created a different story.
It's like two different experiences,
Yes,
in my
yes.
opinion. You could read the story even if you love the movie and still have a different experience. So I think both are worth checking out, of course.
Mhm.
So are you ready to turn the page to The Mist?
Yes.
Because I talked an hour about a short ass story. Now let's see how long we're going to talk about The Mist, which is a little bit longer. Definitely longer than 1408.
Yes, it is longer.
In terms of the story itself.
Yes. Okay. So do you have anything you want to start off with the story itself?
So I've heard a lot about The Mist. I know a lot of people love it. In fact, the Rockford Project saying, one of their favorite, Stephen King stories. I had like high expectations going in, and I had originally seen the movie in the theater in 2007 when it came out, and I remembered the ending. So it's all I knew. I didn't remember anything else from the movie when I went into the short story, except for a vague happening at the very end of the movie. That's all I had in my head going into the story. I liked it. I was surprised by how some things were emphasized, some things weren't. I was surprised by the ending being so different from the movie, from what I was expecting the ending of the book to be or the story to be. And, I'm not I will preface all my opinions about the story with, I'm not a huge creature feature. I like sci-fi as in Star Trek, but I'm not creatures coming out of the fog. And
well, that's probably why you weren't so hyped about the Langoliers as far as
that too.
A story.
I
mean, you liked it.
I did like it, and I like this one too. But I just, in terms of like subgenres, it had a lot of sci-fi, a lot of H.P. Lovecraft feels, which aren't my favorite. But I still appreciated it for what it was. I still think that the very King type of signature was there, and that is that the characters are very fleshed out, and that the people sometimes are just as scary, if not more scary, than the monsters. I think that is like the main part I took away from the story, and the part I concentrated on was how freaky it was that some of these people were acting the way they were in the store. And I feel like that was even emphasized further in the movie. And we'll talk about that when we get to that. But
the Rockford Project says it's what got him reading horror novels, which is super. Yeah,
that is cool. Great comment.
I like monster type stories.
I don't dislike all monster type stories.
I know. But I enjoyed The Mist. Again, it's the second time I'm reading The Mist. I had read it before. Somebody had actually recommended it to me before even the movie came out. So I was one of those people that was like, oh, what? Like, what is happening in the movie? Not saying that it was bad or whatever, but because I don't have to have a movie always be true to the source material. We've talked about that before, but sometimes you don't want it to go on such a tangent. 1408 was fine. I loved it because I felt like it was fleshed out more on it. We have our protagonist, which is David Drayton, who also happens to be the narrator of the story, which
we get a lot of his internal dialogue.
And then going into the story, he has survived whatever has happened because he's living to tell the tale. That's one thing when you go in. In our other story, 1408, we didn't know who the narrator was. They were just telling a story about our protagonist. We know that David Drayton is a commercial artist. And we know that there is a mysterious fog that comes up in this town in Maine, which is Bridgeton, Maine, and which is actually a real place, just to let you know. And this mysterious fog comes up. Now, I thought this was fascinating that Stephen King was inspired by a real life experience that happened. They were staying at like a lake house, and it may actually be in Bridgeton, Maine. I didn't get to do enough research on it, but they did have a lake house. They had a really massive storm, and they went to the grocery store. It was him and his son Joe Hill, who I love. Just imagine Joe Hill when he was a little boy.
Super cute and sweet, probably, and innocent instead of like all the crazy things that he starts to write about later. Like the evil things.
He's so good too. But anyway, they were actually in a supermarket after this horrific storm. They were together. And while they were in there, Stephen King just like started imagining a supernatural story that had this prehistoric bird in it.
And that's how
that's how it's kind of developed.
Wow.
And then he happened to also be in the supermarket with his wife on another occasion. And he happened to see all the front glass of the store. And he just thought to himself, wouldn't it be great if a big bug kind of thing smashed into the window pane? I mean, I don't know. I don't think about those things when I'm in the grocery store, but he did.
Yeah.
And so then the novella was born. So we know that the mist, or we at least get some kind of inkling that the mist and the creatures are a product of something going on with the military, the government, some kind of failed experiment.
The novella hints at that.
Yes.
The movie spells it out.
It does.
I mean, yeah.
It's called the Arrowhead Project. And there's something like there's a breach in kind of the dimensions. Well, guess what, folks? It's related to the Dark Tower.
It is? What is it?
What is it? Okay. So the connection is there is a macroverse, or what they call Todash spaces, or Todash space, which is a mysterious dark reality.
Oh.
And basically the Todash is like a portal.
Oh, okay.
And that's where those gross creatures and stuff exist, because it's dark and mysterious.
And so the Arrowhead Project opens up this.
Yes.
And it allows the creatures from there to come into
so apparently
the mist.
some theory is that they found a thinny, THINNY, which is like a weak spot in that fabric of the dimension. And so perhaps they found that weak spot, caused it to
and they
open,
were experimenting
and then
with
it came out.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I love that reference to the Dark Tower.
I love it too. And I feel like in the movie, isn't he painting an image from the Dark Tower?
I believe it's Roland, the last gunslinger.
So in the movie,
I mean, I see it and I'm like, look at that. That's the Dark Tower. Right
yeah, so he's painting a portrait and he's supposed to be like a commercial artist who's painting book covers and movie posters.
Yeah, but I think he was supposed to be a serious artist that ended up kind of selling out with commercials so that he can make money.
Didn't he mention something about that in the movie too? Or no?
I think it was in the book that you kind of get because his dad was an artist and everything.
Oh,
and
yes, they do explain it further in the
remember,
book.
they were always kind of comparing him to his dad or whatever. And so, but what's interesting to me is we have yet another story, but instead of it being a writer who's kind of selling out for the masses, we've got an artist. But it's kind of like that same theme that kind of like runs through.
It does. It runs through almost every one of his stories.
I think it's because Stephen King must struggle with it himself. He wants to be, he is a serious author. He's written some really awesome books. I find even some of them are what I would consider literary, even though I had a writing teacher that did not. Like you would mention Stephen King's name and he would like, ugh.
I mean, Pet Sematary is such an examination of grief more than a horror story, in my opinion. It's like, how could you say it's not literary at all?
Well, he did not, like, if you would do it, it was sort of like the librarian class, the lady who taught me library science, not liking R.L. Stein. And I'm thinking, you know what? It does have value. I think if anybody
is reading anything, people love to read because of the because of Goosebumps and R.L. Stein. So many people.
A lot of reluctant readers, grew up reading that and ended up being readers, lifelong readers, because they cut their teeth on R.L. Stein. But anyway, I personally did not agree with my writing teacher because I think Stephen King
Joe Hill is the kid in the film Creepshow. I've seen Creepshow, written by Stephen King.
I did not know that.
I didn't know. I'll have to go back and rewatch that.
Rewatch that.
We'll get to this in a second. I want to read Rockford Project's. I thought about the ending when we talk about the movie, but let's see what DJ says. Love the Mist, book and film. The film went straight to DVD here, but luckily I saw it at a film festival in Edinburgh. Say it right?
Edinburgh,
whatever. Wrong place. And experienced that ending with an audience. Yes,
oh, wow.
I saw it in the theater, so I wasn't in like a festival, but still powerful, like, experience.
Well, it is, because especially if you read the short story and then you see the ending.
See, like, I didn't have that.
Shit,
I didn't know how
what
the short
just
story
happened.
Yeah, you're expecting one thing and you're like, oh.
I'm like, kind of scar you for life almost, because you're just like, I know some people that should not watch the movie because they just don't like unhappy endings.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
That's my big problem.
I know.
That's my big problem.
So one thing that I thought was interesting about this, and this is why I think they've got that Lovecraft kind of vibe going on in it too in the story, is because there is that Gothic motif of the mist. And I didn't realize this until I was researching, and then I kind of started thinking about stories that have mist in it. And I'm like, yeah, that makes lots of sense. So I had an aha moment. The mist actually functions symbolically like a veil. There's a thin veneer between a known world and the world beyond. So think about movies and books like that, have that mist and you just don't know. That's what gives it that eerie feeling.
Yeah.
Also, they brought up windows. How fragile plate glass is, that like you think that because you're inside of something and it's got glass there that you're protected, but whatever's out there can see you. And if they really want you, they can get you.
Yeah. And they've got a literal window into your world at the time because you're in there, they're out there. They've got a window into
But you know what? Windows they creep me out. I've told the story before.
Yes.
All I have to do is think about, and I know 53 years old, and I'm still freaked out about the kid in Salem's Lot that is outside the window wanting to be invited in so that he can get his brother.
When you were telling the story about how you don't feel scared at your house, I was like, yeah, right. But if the window is uncovered.
But I'm not scared of what's inside my house. I'm scared of what's outside because I do not. My windows and blinds have to be closed before I go to sleep. Because if the creepy kid comes, I know he's out there.
I don't want to see him.
He is a vampire. Yeah. If that creepy kid comes and wants to be let in, I would freak out. I literally think I could have a heart attack.
Yeah. I think don't ever scare Kat that way. Don't hire a kid actor to go outside her window. That would be so scary.
You see, he knows.
Yes.
Rockford Project knows.
It's happening.
Yes, it is. And he looks so terrible. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, very scary.
Okay, so let's talk about this.
Yes. What the hell? I see that scene and already I'm like, I hate this scene. I hate this. He's like, I miss my wife. Oh, wait, not really. She's like, this crisis has only been going on for like 12 hours, 16 hours, however long it is. Let me go sleep with this lady in the office. And they try to disguise it like, oh, we're just dealing with like a crisis and we're just dealing with stress.
And then the fact that she's the one that walks up to him and is like, I saw you looking at me. I know there's no one in the office and it has a lock. Like, what the hell?
I hated that was
I did
in there.
not. I was like, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't not. Who in their right mind? And this happens in horror movies.
This makes
too.
me dislike
but
the character.
No. This happens in horror movies. How can you be in a crisis where there's somebody about to kill you and you stop and you go have sex? You're like in a vulnerable situation. It happened in Nightbreed.
Oh, he did. Yeah, that was ridiculous. And in prison too. Like they're trying to escape. They're like, "Yo, let's go." And like,
I'm just like, how? You're at your most vulnerable at that point, and someone could kill you big time. And you know what? You really deserve to die.
Leave your son that way. Being watched by all these old ladies, and like there's this other crazy lady preaching down the aisle. Just leave him out there. Yeah, they're gonna want to sacrifice him in a couple of pages, but sure, go ahead and have sex in the office. That's fine.
I read that story and I forgot about that scene, but I didn't like it.
It made me dislike him because it's like, seriously, your wife's barely, like, we don't even really know she's completely gone. I mean, yeah, you assume so, but like, you really miss her, huh? Like, yeah, like, you ass. Like, I don't know. It made me sad.
And then I think to myself, would he have felt guilty?
He did say he felt guilty. If they would have come
out of it.
And
then
she was
he had
okay.
to look at his wife. And like, but then
Yeah.
you kind of wonder, what kind of a wife was she? Did they have problems? Was she like a nag?
No, they seemed like they got along in the beginning in the story. I'm very upset by his actions.
Underlying. I know.
I mean, it's very sad.
So that is a tally mark against David.
Yeah, David, you jerk.
Moral choices.
It's just very sad. Like,
is there anyone that disagrees with us on that?
I mean, like he's in the grocery and he's already noticing her like right away. Like, dude, nothing's happened yet.
Eyes.
Yeah, he's
It's
like,
all
oh,
the
green
eyes.
eyes, I love him. like, come on, man. Anyway.
Oh, he was like wanting to know if they were contacts or not. But no, they really were. The color
He wanted to
green.
get real close.
I think
to
she was
see.
hypnotizing him. And she was married too. She
I
was the
know.
one who provided the gun that her husband gave to her for protection while he's
But
out
now,
on
at least in
business.
the movie, thank God they left that part
I'm
out.
glad.
I saw it in the theater, but honestly, when I rewatched it this week, I didn't remember
Jonathan
everything.
says you both like it. Stop it.
I did not like that it was in there. I was so mad. I was so mad. Like, why? Thank God they left it out of the movie because I couldn't remember if that part was in the movie or not. So when I rewatched it, I was like, are they going to sleep together? I kept waiting for her to be like, let's go to the office.
I was like, I don't remember this being in the movie. And I don't even remember this being in the book. So, I mean.
But also, by the way,
maybe
like,
I blocked
what's
it
with
out.
King? Because in Pet Sematary, one line,
oh, there was a lot of sex in Pet Sematary.
No, but in a line, one, we find out Judd cheated on his wife.
Oh,
sad. Two, I was like, really? I thought Judd was a good guy. And I was like, I'm going to try to block that out.
Oh, no, he had his women on the side,
I
and his
know.
wife knew about it.
They got me. And so then also, but the doctor, our main guy,
he had an affair.
Yeah, and he mentions it in like one little line. Oh, that whore in Chicago meant nothing like a few months ago. I was like, what the hell? Everyone cheats on everybody. Like, it's a little sad.
Well,
That's what
you
King's
wonder.
character
Well,
is.
you just wonder.
You wonder what? Like, King?
Why? Was there something that happened in his background? Maybe his dad did it to his mom.
I hope Stephen King didn't do it to
no,
his
I don't
wife.
think he could do that to Tabby.
He might.
I
He's
hope
famous.
not. I know, but I wouldn't think. I would hope not.
I mean, I don't know.
That
I
would
don't
make
really
me
look.
sad.
I would make me very sad, but I don't really see him as a ladies' man. But he was a. Maybe when he's doing all the coke and stuff. I don't know. That's very sad. But why does he put it in the books? I thought the couple was happy in Pet Sematary before the kid died. And all of a sudden he's like, yo, when I was with this like prostitute, he wasn't doing this. But when I was with this prostitute a couple of months ago, you forget about it and time moves on. Yeah, for you, bitch. Like if your wife knew, time would not be moving on.
No, because she would remind you painfully.
Yeah, or not even be there. Anyway.
Okay, so
sidebar.
Rockford Project says, what I like about the mist is that they're all trapped inside, not knowing what is in the mist outside. The not knowing is what kept me. I agree.
Kept me intrigued.
Yes, I agree because it's creepy. I mean, I have actually been out like in my neighborhood in where it's been foggy, like walking and stuff. And sometimes you don't come upon something until you get out of the fog, and it kind of can startle you.
It can,
about things that happen. Now, of course, is that Halco?
Yes.
Yes.
In a time of crisis, I wouldn't be thinking about that. Like, I know. Me neither. It'd be the last thing I'd be thinking about. There's these creatures banging on the windows outside. Hey, let's go bang inside. Like,
their eyes are so stunning.
Yeah. Anyway, I know it's a sidebar, guys. Please bear with us.
Okay, so
did anyone listen to the audiobook? I did for The Mist and for 1408. I liked the audiobook. Sorry, King, because he narrated 1408. I liked the audiobook for The Mist better.
Who did that one? Do you remember?
I don't remember who, but it was okay. It wasn't Michael C. Hall level or Willem Dafoe
Yeah, well,
level.
nobody's going to top them.
But King, traditionally, his stories and his works usually have a pretty good narrator.
Yeah, I would think
so. It was decent.
I would think so. And I would think if they had a bad narrator back in the day,
they would get someone to redo it.
Yeah,
yes.
Of
course.
This novella ends with hope. It has kind of a happy ending.
Well, kind of.
I think so.
It leaves it open. Yeah.
It leaves it open. I am going to choose.
So you like the novella ending?
No, not necessarily. I'm just saying. Just saying.
Pick an ending. Which one you like better? Do it. Well, we know how they film ends. So guys, this is big film spoilers.
Okay.
The end of the film is usually different.
Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. But I'm just saying it ends with hope. It ends with the possibilities of what could transpire. So you get
the whisper of a word.
You get to decide how you want it to end. And if you're a person that loves happy endings, then you can make it up any way you want, because Stephen King did not write a sequel to it.
Yes, you could think that it's a happy ending, that they heard a word on the radio.
Yes. Well, 2 words. Well, Hartford, which means
and then
hope.
Yes. And that's what he
whispers to his son. That's right. And we know that it is David, Billy, Amanda, and Irene are in the vehicle.
In the book.
Yes.
All right, let's get into the film and the differences, because I'm dying to compare. I'm dying.
Okay. So,
also from 2007, just like 1408.
2007, yes. Our director is Frank Darabont. I think I'm pronouncing his last name.
Darabont,
He is huge when it comes to films and
Mhm.
television, guys. He also directed Shawshank Redemption, also directed The Green Mile, and creator of one of my favorite shows, The Walking Dead.
I know.
Dun,
So
dun,
Shawshank Redemption is
dun.
one of my favorite movies of all time. So I love Frank because that's like one of the greatest adaptations. I've never even read the story, but I love the film so much. When I first saw the film, it blew my mind, and I watched it again like right after. So I watched it back to back on the first day I ever rented it from
Well,
Blockbuster.
he is,
Blockbuster.
yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yes, back in the day.
Yeah, so he is, I mean, and now I can understand how some of these actors made it onto The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Because we have some actors, some Walking Dead actors in this film.
So I like the Mist movie, but I would say out of all of Darabont's things, I actually don't like this one as much as this other stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like this is probably my least favorite thing out of the things we just named.
I love The Green Mile.
The Green Mile is
and you're
so
gonna
good.
gasp when I say this, but I have never seen the Shawshank Redemption from beginning to end.
No,
I know,
it's
and
so good.
And you wonder how is that possible, because it seems like every time you turn on the television, no matter what channel it's on.
Oh my god, it's so good. Oh,
I know,
so
and
I
it's one
from
that I need to, because I love it. I mean, I love the premise of it and the actors in it, and it looks so very well done.
It's so well made.
So eventually I'll get to it. Eventually,
you will love it. Though when you sit down to watch the whole thing, I think it is long.
Yes, I have seen bits and pieces of it. It's just one of those things I haven't devoted the time to it.
It is long, yeah.
But
favorable reviews.
Yes, IMDb 7.1 out of 10, Rotten Tomatoes 72%, Google users 85%. So kind of similar to 1408. Did you notice who our David was?
No.
It was Wilfred from 1922.
Oh, yes. That's the same guy? I didn't even know it was the same guy. I could actually understand him.
So different.
He looks different, and I could understand his
Thomas Jane also was in Dreamcatcher, which I've seen that many moons ago.
Many years. I wouldn't have remembered he was in that.
Yes, I did not remember that at all, but I do remember him because of 1922.
I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, he's also the Punisher.
Oh, okay.
In the movie.
Yes, the movie, yeah.
Amanda Dumfries is played by Laurie Holden, who happens to be
I
Walking
recognize
Dead
her.
alum. She plays Andrea on The Walking Dead. Dan Miller is played by one of our guys, Jeffrey DeMunn.
Mm-hmm.
He actually was in The Green Mile. He plays Harry. He also plays the 1946 DA in Shawshank Redemption. He was also Harry's brother Philip in Christmas Evil, if you don't forget that.
Oh, yeah. Christmas Evil.
And then he is a Walking Dead alum. He plays Dale.
I remember that, of course.
Did you forget about Christmas Evil?
I did forget about Christmas Evil. I was like, well, oh, yeah.
Christmas Evil is Kelsey's favorite movie in the whole world.
It's one of my favorite films, actually. Honestly, I do really love it. I don't care what anyone says, including you.
Hey, after seeing some of these slasher films this month, Christmas Evil is Oscar worthy.
Over Graduation Day it is, and over Maniac, apparently.
Yes, Maniac
I haven't seen it yet. The original Maniac.
Oh my god!
Graduation Day was fun, though, by the way. I just watched that slasher last night.
It is definitely your cheese and corn.
It's so 80s.
Yes,
but
big time.
But Christmas Evil is a lot more sophisticated than that.
I think so. The woman with kid, that's how she's credited, is Melissa McBride, who is also Walking Dead alum. She plays Carol in The Walking Dead.
Oh, and the greatest villain, too.
We see her in the beginning, and then we also see Melissa McBride at the end on the truck.
Oh, yes. Getting rescued.
Kind of thing. Yes. Mrs. Carmody.
Carmody?
Is that how you pronounce it? Played by Marcia Gay Harden.
She did a great job because I hated her.
Yeah, she was a terrific villain, antagonist. They even talk about her as one of the top villains in our magazine.
And I will say she her role was, I think, a little more emphasized in the movie than the book.
Yes. I think they brought up more of the monsters in the mist, as well as monsters inside the supermarket.
Yeah.
Like more of that was at the forefront in the movie. Like it was more heated.
Right.
But this is who I'm talking about. She did a fabulous job.
She did. She
Really
really
did.
did. And they also had a little different scene. Like, she feels so, I guess, empowered, because in the movie, which doesn't happen in the book, a bug lands on her and she's ready to be stung. She's like, do what you will, whatever the hell. And then the bug does not sting her. The bug flies off. And from then on, she goes ham, and she's like, I'm all powerful. I
Yes.
must be chosen to survive.
Exactly.
I could do no wrong.
Yes.
I'm connected to the Lord. So I think that made her even more sinister in the movie, that whole scene took place, because it gave her, like,
it gave her power.
It gave her power in her mind. Like, she couldn't be touched.
I mean, it was like a false sense of power, but
exactly.
it gave her power.
Yeah, in her mind, it did. Yeah.
Our book says one of the biggest threats in the mist is not the monster it conceals. In the 1980 novella, the town of Bridgeton, Maine is permeated by a fog that hides mysterious creatures. The story's main setting is the local supermarket where several people are trapped, including Mrs. Carmody, a religious zealot who believes the mist is a sign of the apocalypse. As more people are devoured by the monsters, paranoia takes over, and she plays on that fear. Kind of almost reminded me like of Salem, when they were accusing women of being witches, like the hysteria from that. That's what she kind of reminded me of. The longer they're trapped in the store, the more fervent and dangerous her preaching becomes. As she gains added power through her followers, who blindly believes every radical thing she spews, she convinces them that the only way to stop the carnage is with a human sacrifice, which of course turns out to be Billy. They want to keep the child, to do that. She is so despised that when the character is finally shot dead in order to stop her from going further, to do further harm, there were people in the theater who actually cheered. And guess what? I was like, yeah.
Paul had never seen it, I don't think, and he said, tell me this lady gets it, and she gets it like good. Right. I was like, yeah.
Now it said the Mist was adapted for TV series a decade later. Fans were shocked when Mrs. Carmody was killed off on the very first episode. Why not keep one of the main characters around all season? And according to the showrunner, he said, I decided to create this little character that sort of lives on the sideline and then has a terrible fate in the pilot, sort of just as an homage to the source material. It was just everything that I wanted to do with her as a fan. All the hatred and frustration that we all felt with her when we saw the movie. I wanted to do that. Now, I did not get to watch the TV show, and let me explain why. It is not streaming anywhere free. I couldn't even get it on DVD through Netflix.
What year is it from again? What did it just said the year, I think. Did it? Maybe I'm wrong. I thought it said a year.
No. I don't know, but it's recent, I think, within the last few years. And everything I started reading about it had bad reviews. Like, it's supposed to be terrible. And I'm like, I'm not paying $19.99.
And it's terrible.
For something that's terrible. So
when the movie is regarded as pretty good.
Yes.
I mean,
so I did not watch it. I was like,
well, you knew I wasn't going to watch it, so I guess that helped too.
And so I was like, what's the point of watching it? And it only was one season. It did not even get picked up for a second season because it did not do well. To me,
it feels like a bad mistake to eliminate her character in the first episode, in the pilot.
Okay, now there is a miniseries of The Mist on Netflix over here in the UK.
I wonder if that is the miniseries or if it's a different series. Because Kat is talking about the TV series, but I don't know if it's the same that you're talking about. In our Netflix, it's not on our Netflix.
It's on Netflix, but it's not streaming on Netflix. And you can click it to see if you want to get the DVD, because I do have a DVD plan. I'm one of like probably 100 people in the world. But anyway,
you can get any DVD. I'm
pretty proud of that myself.
It's a good thing to have because they have a lot of DVDs.
But it says save to queue, so they don't have it available for you to get it or whatever. And like I said, I could get it through Amazon Prime, I believe, but I would have had to pay like $19.99 for it or something. I'm like, I'm not doing that for something that's not gotten high ratings or whatever.
Exactly.
But now he did say I watched 3/4 of it but didn't finish it. So that says a lot. Yeah. Especially since he likes the source material and
the movie too. He said think Frank did a good job.
Even though he didn't really like the ending as much as...
I can't wait to talk about the ending. Are you ready? Whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
Okay, so let's finish. Let's finish. Okay, what are actors? Irene Repler is played by Frances Sternhagen. We know her because we talked about her a little bit because
She was the
in
sheriff's
Misery.
wife
Yeah, she
in
was
Misery,
Virginia
in the
in
movie.
Misery. She's actually still alive. She's like 92 years
She's
old.
so cute, and
She's
that was Paul's
precious.
favorite character.
And I loved her in this because she's really gutsy again. She plays another gutsy,
saucy. I like her.
Yes.
Paul, that was his favorite character in the movie. He's like, I like the old lady. She's the best character. I was like, yeah, I like her too.
And then another character I thought we should mention is Jim, played by William Sadler. He was also in Shawshank. He plays Haywood. He was in Green Mile. He plays Claus. And guess what? He plays Death in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That's a pretty big role.
Excellent.
Most excellent. Party on, dudes. Yeah. Well, anyway.
I like Bill and Ted. I'm sorry.
Me too.
I'm a nerd.
I had a poster of Bill and Ted that I got for Christmas that was in my room for I kept it in my room for 8 years. So yeah, growing up, I had a Bill and Ted poster.
Of course, Keanu Reeves is in it, and I love him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Okay, so we open up the movie with David painting what looks like to be Roland.
The Dark Tower.
Yeah. The Mist.
I saw the Thing in the background. The movie poster version of The Thing.
Oh, did you?
Carpenter's. That's what I thought I saw in the back of his studio. A painting that looked like the movie poster of Carpenter's The Thing. And that could be... I mean, why would they show... I thought it maybe should be all King stuff, but I'm telling you, I thought it was the...
Well, I wouldn't be surprised because if that was any kind of inspiration...
Because of creatures and kind of sci-fi-ish. Yeah,
yes. I think, personally, the movie sticks to the source material pretty faithfully.
It does.
Although the ending is much darker, much darker. And we have an additional character that drives off with them, which happens to be Dan Miller.
I like that, that he was there.
Yes. Just a little side note before we go into the ending, because I know Kelsey's chomping at the bit. Even though the setting is Bridgeton, Maine, The Mist was shot in Louisiana,
which I didn't even know about till Kat told me.
My husband actually told me yesterday. So,
Pretty
and I was
cool.
like, okay, let me research that. So it was shot in Shreveport in a town called Minden, which is in Louisiana. The supermarket they used was Tom's Market. And I didn't know this, but the director wanted to shoot this in black and white, which I think would really be cool. And I do think, don't quote me on this, I do think there might be a version of the black and white maybe on Blu-ray. Maybe he did get his way, because think about, there's something else, and I can understand possibly why they did this now. In The Walking Dead, the original first season was shot in color, but they did a special black and white also, which was pretty cool. And so I'm wondering if that is something that he just likes.
Well, I've got something that would match with this black and white thing that you were talking about. So my dad just watched The Mist because it was a big deal. It just came to Netflix this week.
Yes. Yeah,
so
Wednesday.
everyone's watching it.
Because guess what? I got it on DVD and had it pretty much for a couple of weeks in anticipation,
and then
saw it was streaming, and I'm like, I'm sending the DVD back because I needed Psycho 2.
Oh, good. So have you gotten Psycho 2 yet?
I've got Psycho 2 yesterday. Good. Because I wanted to watch Psycho and Psycho 2 as part of the Bookybus's
Scary Sleepover Weekend.
So I'm gonna have to do a double movie marathon tonight.
Yeah, I've got to watch. I already watched my first movie for that, Scary Sleepover Weekend, and my second one should be Prom Night tonight. So hopefully I can get to that later. But
see, we get off on tangents
we do, but tangents are good. People like tangents, I think. But speaking of the black and white thing, my dad told me, so he just watched The Mist because it was on streaming, and he's like, I didn't realize it was a creature feature, which he loves.
Yes,
he likes creature features a lot. So he said the ending of The Mist reminded him of an ending of one of the Twilight Zone type of episodes, or he said it was
the Monsters on Maple Street.
Not that one. He said it's the same ending as one of the anthologies from 1969's The Illustrated Man, starring Rod Steiger He said it's about a couple in the far future in an advanced society that knows the world is supposed to end the next day. They do something where put themselves out of their misery type of deal. Then they find out, oh, did this happen or not? Anyway, I don't want to spoil it, but he said that ending reminded him of this black and white old school anthology. So to me, it's like maybe it's because I thought he had said it was a Twilight Zone thing, but apparently he didn't say that.
Yeah, but I do think because some people said they thought this had kind of like undertones of like Lord of the Flies, which in the supermarket in the film you kind of got those kind of vibes or whatever. And then also too, I think he was kind of going for some kind of like almost like a Twilight Zone thing. And I want to say I was reading something about like the monsters on Maple Street where people turn against each other because they think there's something happening.
And The Illustrated Man is a short story by Ray Bradbury, of course. Oh, by the way, I just looked it up. But I don't know.
Ray. Our guy Ray.
I don't know if the movie itself was in black and white, though I could be wrong on that. But my dad was just telling me that he felt like the ending of The Mist, the movie, was very similar to this, The Illustrated Man short.
Right.
So, or maybe it was a whole anthology and it was one of the shorts in the anthology. Yeah, it was a whole anthology called The Illustrated Man.
I do think what works for The Mist, too, is they have such a strong ensemble of actors that really bring it. You know, they do such a great job of executing the feeling that would end up happening if you were in such of a situation like that.
I do think the acting's strong.
And also, too, I liked the part. It was sad, but I could see it. I really could see this happening is when they take, because this character was not in the story, when they take that young military guy.
Oh my God, that was powerful.
Him and they push him out of the supermarket, knowing that what his fate is going to be. My heart just, you know,
I thought that was a good addition.
It was so heart-wrenching to me because people knew that it wasn't his fault, but they associated him. And again, it reminded me of like the witch trials.
They wanted someone to blame for something that they couldn't understand.
And because of her power and her it also just shows you that when people are paranoid and they're so scared that if they're not strong enough in their mind to make a decision for themselves, they're so easily led.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
Which is scary.
It's very scary. And you could totally see that. And the movie really drives that home. Like, people can be convinced to believe anything, to do anything, if they got a leader that is manipulative enough, that is like, confident enough, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Very good job with her parts, Mrs. Carmody's role specifically. I thought that was so well done in the movie because she had such a larger part.
Right. I think so.
I think that was the best. In my opinion, she was the best actor in the film because I think her role is pretty pivotal.
Yes.
She's the reason they had to leave the store in the movie. You really felt like they were like, we got to take our chances out here because we can't stay with her anymore and with all these people.
Now, I did love the scene when they went to the pharmacy. I thought it was very tense. I knew it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. I knew that they were going to be there. They were going to lose some people, but I did think that was really creepy. When all those spiders, like when a guy falls and all those spiders go, I mean, it just like is chaos.
So you like that? You didn't think it was too cartoony?
I didn't think so.
I can't remember if Paul said it was a little cartoony, but I did think that was kind of freaky. That was kind of gross. I mean, very gross.
Well, I knew something. I kept saying to myself, look up, look up, look up, look up, look up. It was like, there's a reason because like, I think in the story, if I'm not mistaken, they see the dead bodies littered in the pharmacy right when they walk in. You know, I mean, the spiders and stuff are there and there's the webbing, but they see it immediately what happens. And then they're like, oh, thank God we didn't leave our doors open kind of thing. Otherwise we would have been in that situation. In this, I think it just led to the suspense and they dragged it out in a good way. Whatever. Yeah.
It made me very on edge, especially when they're behind the counter trying to find it. Like, come on, find the medicine, get out of there, get out of there.
Yes. And did you notice if they even brought the medicine back with them? I don't think they brought any bags back in with them.
They didn't.
So they go through the whole thing.
A waste life. And that's why I think he is so spent. So our main character comes back and he's like, he like sleeps because he's like so spent. I think emotionally, I think physically, he's just like, all that was for nothing and we lost more lives.
Yes.
And now it's given Mrs. Flippin' Carmody, whatever the hell her name is, more power because she's like, I was right. See,
well,
bitch.
And somebody even mentioned, it was Richard Brown said, don't all her prophecies come true? Yeah, conveniently they do, you know.
Well, if someone goes outside, they're going to die. I mean, come on. It's a pretty good chance. Once they find out something's in the mist, her prophecy is a pretty good chance of happening.
Well, and then Rockford Project said says they love the pharmacy scene.
Just like the book made them visualize it.
Yeah.
I liked it too, and I think it was even more tense in the movie than in the book, even because, like you said, they dragged it out.
Well, and also too, what I think is interesting about it, it really showed you how dangerous she was becoming, to the point that they were desperate enough that they would make an attempt to leave, knowing what their outcome could be, and that they could actually lose people before they got to the vehicle. That just goes to tell you how urgent it was for them to get out.
How ready.
If they would have stayed there. Now, of course, she gets killed, but that doesn't mean that somebody else would not have take on her, role, because that usually
or
is
there
what
wouldn't have been an
happens.
uprising, like, you killed her. Like, people revolting on them, essentially, being like, I can't believe you did this. Let's get them. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, anything could have happened if they stayed, especially after what they did with shooting the only person was a leader to these people. So, yeah, I think they had to get out, no matter if she was killed or not.
And I loved her transition, how she became, like, at first she seemed like she was, like, just this eccentric woman, until she almost seemed like she was, like, possessed.
Yes. Even her, like, body language, because she was, like, kind of like...
Well, like, think about it. Her hair was up at the beginning, then her hair is down. So it's like she's letting loose, like she's unleashing whatever it is.
That's a good
that's
analogy.
how I was kind of thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like when you look at how somebody's dressed or their mannerisms or whatever, it fuels what their character is supposed to say and do or whatever.
Right.
And I do think that was intentional, because she was really unleashing her fury.
She was, and man, I wouldn't want to be on her bad side. She didn't like a lot of people. She
did not. If they didn't agree with her, then they were not going to live. They do have a little bit, because guess what? The Mist is also in the top 20.
It should be. It's a good adaptation, I believe.
Yes.
In my opinion.
It is actually number 9.
On this list of, again, Kat is referring to this magazine, which is the best Stephen King adaptations according to this magazine. And in this list, this top 20 list, The Mist is number 9 of best adaptations.
So number 9, and I'm just going to try to scan it through. For his third King adaptation, Frank Darabont directed an ensemble cast of terrific terrified shoppers, including Thomas Jane, Marcy Gay Harden, who expertly depicted the extremes people will go to out of fear of the unknown. The story is less about the monsters outside than about the monsters inside. Your friends and neighbors breaking under the strain, explained Darabont. The director took some liberties with his script, most notably creating a new, much darker ending, and no one was more impressed with what Darabont did than King. So he liked it. When Frank was interested in The Mist, one of the things that he insisted on was that it would have some kind of an ending, which the story doesn't have, recalled King. It just sort of peters off into nothing, where these people are stuck in the mist and they're out of gas and the monsters are around and you don't know what's going to happen next. Moviegoers who had read the book were in for shock in the final moments of Darabont's masterpiece. Describing it as the most shocking ending ever, King went as far to say there should be a law passed stating that anybody who reveals the last 5 minutes of this film should be hung from their neck until dead.
Because it would ruin it. I mean, that's the big surprise, is that it's so different.
And here we're about to ruin it.
Well, no, we've got spoiler warning. So, guys, we're going to spoil the ending of The Mist. But I do want to say about actors.
And this is what it is. It says right here, he wanted to release The Mist in black and white. In 2008, his preferred version came out on Blu-ray. So there is a black and white version on Blu-ray of this, which I think would be interesting to see.
Yeah, because that's very different.
Think it would change the whole ambiance of the movie.
I do want to highlight this about an actor real quick. Where'd it go? Here we go. Arlene says, was really surprised when Toby Jones suddenly popped up, a staple of UK film and TV.
Yes,
that
I
was
forgot
Ollie.
to mention
and he was
Toby
in
Jones.
Wayward Pines, I believe. Isn't that the same actor? I don't know if you saw that
And
show.
Of course, Ollie, you don't want him to die. He's like your moral compass there, and such a good guy. So it really does stab you. It stabs you in the heart.
It does.
That he ends up, because he was the one that was so steady, and they even said it in the story as well as they showed it in the film, that it was almost like even under pressure, he was able to shoot the gun without like shaking or anything. Like he knew he had a job to do, and then he just did it.
Yeah, I liked him.
So it was really wonderful to see him. I didn't go into details about him because my list, when you have a movie with so many great actors in it, I hate being greedy with our time talking about it. But I just think we had a stellar cast, and I have a feeling that the 3 alums on the Walking Dead probably made an impression on him in the film, because the film was prior to Walking Dead starting.
So then he's like,
so that might be how they ended up on that. So I mean, I think that's pretty awesome if it turned out to be that way.
This is an interesting comment. I could see this too. Kathy Bates would have made a great Mrs. Carmody in the movie.
And I also think the actress who played like Kathy Bates also did Misery. I think she could have probably done a good Misery too.
Oh, you mean reversed?
Yeah, I honestly, don't you think?
She could have. Oh, yeah, she could have. Yeah. There's a mosquito in here. I'm sorry.
It's one of the creatures. It's going to all of a sudden get really
big. It's the big mosquito. Like, no.
Stab us in our neck or something. That would be terrible.
Let's talk. Are you ready yet to talk about the end? All right, so guys, shout it below. I know some of you already did. I'll have to scroll up to find the answers. But do you like the movie ending? Yes or no? And right now we are about to spoil it. So if you've not seen the movie, please tune out now, because freaking he shoots everyone in the car and then he's left alive. And then 2 minutes later, rescue comes.
The fog dissipates, and then there's the military.
I actually liked that ending better.
It is so sad.
It's bleak. I love it because it's realistic.
So sad. And Thomas Jane does such a great job
at being like tortured.
His grief in the vehicle. I loved how they didn't even show what you knew what happened just based on when they pulled away. I thought that was awesome. You didn't have to see it to get the same impact. You're like, no. And the fact that he has to live with that, which I kind of feel like, does he really live with it, or does he take his life later on down the line?
Because like he'll be tortured forever.
Yeah,
forever. His wife and then his son by his own hand. If we would have just waited a few minutes longer. To me, it's so powerful. I kind of like bleak endings sometimes because to me, sometimes they're a little bit more realistic and it makes you think even more. So yeah, the other one is more hopeful, but I feel like it wasn't a real ending.
So this one's a real ending. We have hopeless.
I'm like hopeless. I'm like, yeah, hopelessness. Great.
No, but it is true. The thing about it is most everybody likes happy endings, and you want your people to live and you want them to go on, even if they have to live with whatever the horrific things that they endured. But that's not reality. I mean, that's really not reality. Well, I mean, my husband has a friend that like he gets super angry if like your main character dies, if it has an ending like this, like he just like, so I'll tell my husband all the time, tell Richard not to watch this movie because he's not going to like what happens.
So the Rockford Project, quite a bit ago said, and I wanted to save this for when we got here, hate the movie ending, although I understand why they changed it for the big screen. The book leaves you with hope, the movie with frustration.
Yes, you are 100% accurate in that statement.
I'll say this. So I read the story at the end of June. So I read it, at the end of May. I read it early. Right. So before we were going to have it, I was supposed to read it in June, but I was like, I'm going to read it at the end of May, get it, done. So I could do this whole month with slashers. So that was a while ago. Mm-hmm. I watched the movie this week. So it's been about a month since I read that. So Paul sees it, he sees the end, and he's like, I said, the ending's different. He's like, well, how does the story end? And I couldn't remember. But I have not rewatched the movie since I saw it in the theater and I knew how it ended. I remember how it ended.
Right.
So to me, that tells me the ending stuck with me. It's impactful. It's memorable. Whereas I just read the book a month ago and I couldn't remember the end. Right. I couldn't remember. I knew that they survived, obviously, but I couldn't remember, were they at a gas station? Did he hear some? I couldn't remember any details. So to me, the ending of the movie is so memorable. However, yes, frustrating. Mm-hmm. Yes, sad. Yes, bleak.
It is, because I mean, even when he gets out of the vehicle and he's looking like like what the hell, he breaks down again. He falls to his knees and is just
screaming
in such anguish. as at what he has done, and it was only moments before. I think that's also the issue. Like it's
Just a few
literally
minutes.
moments.
Yeah.
Moments. And
I will say my only criticism is, couldn't he have waited like a few minutes till they got to
well,
hunger?
this is what my husband and I discussed yesterday. He and I both agreed on this. If it was real life, we would have had to be like starving and dehydrated to the point that we were going to suffer from dehydration or starvation, which would have been an extremely painful death. I would not want my own child to go through that or whatever. It would have to be to that extreme.
I do think it was a little
for
quick.
me to go. So if I have a criticism, my criticism is and of course, you're not the character. You're not in their shoes sitting in that vehicle as they had, come across. He realized his wife was dead. He saw that she was dead, which he doesn't see her physically dead in the story.
Yes,
but
he doesn't.
Anyway, so what they're going through is different than us realistically outside the story as people. So it's always easier to say, well, this is what I would do. However, knowing myself, if I was with my child, I would have had to wait till the last moment to take my child's life. I'm just saying.
Maybe it's because he was sleeping. Billy was sleeping, and they were like, let's do it before he wakes up, really. But he just woke up.
I mean,
and then they're like, yo. Pew. But anyway, I do think in the film they could have, made them sit there for a couple of hours.
Even a time lapse. They could have even said, 10 hours later, 2 days later, whatever. I do think that is my criticism about that. But again, were they so desperate at that point? Had they talked about it and agreed upon it at some point that we didn't see?
It's like they're running out of gas. They all looked at each other and
they're running out of time. It was almost like running out of gas was them running out of time.
Because they weren't going to even venture out to try to find gas at that point.
Right.
Because of all that they had seen, I suppose. But it's just like me, I would have waited till I was hungry or thirsty or we can't do anymore. We can't
think about it. There's always survival stories where people are like drinking their urine and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like somehow, you would think they would have waited. But
that is my one criticism. Otherwise, I personally liked the ending better. But I understand and I'm going to read all these opinions, but say what you want to say about the ending, Kat.
I mean, I like sometimes it to be hopeful and not necessarily that it had to be happy, kind of thing, because some books they'll end, but people still have to struggle. We don't know how long they were going to have to still struggle in the mist. They might have eventually died because there was nothing. You know what I'm saying? So in some ways, take away the military coming right away. Would their death have been worse later on down the line? I mean, is it that the way Stephen King ended it was just to give us hope? But it really wasn't really a hopeful situation.
Yeah.
Stephen King clearly didn't want it to end, The Mist.
Yeah.
Because he gives no indication that there is
help,
that it's dissipating. I mean, he doesn't even know 100% if he actually heard what he heard.
Right.
So you got to keep that in mind. He thinks
you can interpret it as a negative or a positive ending. I mean, the character chooses to believe in something. So in that way, it's positive.
But it could be
negative.
A powerful ending. And I do see why they made the choice that they did. But it was shocking.
It was very shocking. And I can only imagine knowing the ending and you being like, what did they do? That's why it was so shocking. Like, what did they do? I like your facial expression. So, Theory of Everything says, best part of the film in terms of the ending. Halko says, I love the movie ending. It's so messed up. Benjamin says, I like the movie ending. Me too, Benjamin. Me too. Theory of Everything says, most Americans can't handle those type of endings.
It's true. That is true.
The Rockford Project says, I hated the ending, but understand why they did it. And then also said, I read the book several times about 15 years ago. So when I watched the movie, I felt let down. It's very different. So I can understand being like thinking one way and then it goes a different direction. Richard says, think the movie ending is a bit of an overreaction by Thomas Jane's character, gives up hope a bit too quickly. That is my one criticism.
Yes.
If they did a time lapse, it would have fixed that, in my opinion, and I could have, the ending would have worked, and it would have been just as powerful. had they done a time lapse or something to indicate that
Well,
they
and
waited.
also too, I think if they would have had more of the creatures like attacking the vehicle, you know, I mean, you see the one scene where the big, huge
that's it.
creature goes by, but like I could see if like they were having now, and I understand because really the creatures are prompted by smell, so they're inside of something and they're not attracting the creatures. But I could see if they could see like the creatures on a tree, or they saw them scuttling outside, or they could see the tentacles whipping here and there.
Yeah.
Something to indicate that they could not get out to go anywhere. And there was nothing in sight, like a building. Whereas like in the story, they obviously end up at a Howard Johnson's, so they can get inside of something. And whether they stay there for a long period of time, or they're brave enough to go out and get the gas, because they said they can get more gas, but they have to risk it. Okay, so I can see how that plays out. But in a situation like this, there isn't any indication that the creatures are where they're at, because you haven't seen any.
Yeah.
And so you almost wonder, like, okay, you're kind of giving up a little bit too soon in that sense. So that is where I think the ending's a little unrealistic.
Yeah. But again, that's just execution. I like the actual like action of it in a way, because it's powerful. It says something. It's extreme. It's so different. I will say, Arlene says, kind of piggybacking off of the theory of everything, American films have always gone for happy endings. The British always go for miserable endings. So really impressed by the nihilistic ending.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised they went there. I honestly am. The Rockford Project says the movie could have ended with them thinking about the shooting themselves thing and the camera panning up and away into the mist. But again, that's leaving it open-ended, and I think the director didn't want it
right.
open.
And also, Darabont is known for ripping your heart out your chest.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, I mean, if
The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead,
Yeah.
I mean, there are several characters that
I stopped
like,
watching after some of my favorites died.
It took me like days to try to recover, and I'm still not even recovered from some of them. Okay, it's just it's heartbreaking. Like, you almost want to go back and rewatch the episodes where your characters are alive in the happier times.
I know. I thought about
because you're
restarting
just like,
Walking Dead. I was like, do I want to go through it all again? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I still can't get over Glenn, and never.
That's a
I can
spoiler.
never get over him.
I know. I stopped watching it at a certain point. I was like, I cannot do this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it does make it a little more
powerful, impactful.
Yeah.
Yes, in a way, like, yeah, but I think it was definitely on purpose by Frank Darabont. They're like, let's do something that's different, that people are not expecting who have read the story, type of deal. So I'm happy with it, because you still have the source material and you still have the hopeful, or what you could consider hopeful, interpretation. So the movie's ending doesn't take that away. It's someone else's interpretation. You know what I mean? It doesn't change what you could interpret the original story like, and the ending of the original story. So to me, it's like looking at two different things. And so I respect both things, but I personally kind of like the ending of the movie more. And I do think the movie is good, but I remember it being a lot more, I don't know, I guess, you know how I watched I Am Legend and the special effects didn't hold up? I did find that the special effects in the mist were a little cheesy.
Well, they do
cheesy.
make a little comment about that in this book right here.
Yeah.
They talk about that.
What did they say?
Let me see if this is the page.
Because that was my one criticism. Like, when I was seeing the tentacle, I was like, it looks a little. But it's been many years since then. So this is 2007.
I don't know if I found it or not, but there was a mention of it.
If you can't find it, it's okay. But they just kind of acknowledged that it was a little outdated.
It was something about how they talked about the film. Yeah, it said, if the film has any flaw worth commenting on, it is, for me, the hideously fake-looking CGI beasts that make a brief cameo beneath the open garage door. But that's not enough to stop the movie from being a powerful one.
I do agree with that. I did think that it was a little bad when you look back on it now. But in the theater, I don't remember feeling that way. So at the time, it must have been fine.
Well, but it must have also been like same thing with you with I Am Legend.
Yeah, I didn't notice that either.
Until you rewatched it.
Yes.
So it's a different time, different age.
So you can't judge it
and
too
you're comparing
harshly.
it to a lot of what we're seeing nowadays, you know.
Well, I don't even like a lot of modern CGI. I don't like either. I would always prefer practical effects, always.
Now, talking about creatures, there, according to this aliensfandom.com, the creatures of the mist are inhabitants of an alternate reality. And it says, due to the thickness of the mist making sight almost useless to them, all the creatures in the mist hunt on the basis of scent. In the novella,
that's why they were safe
by Stephen King, it is hinted that the mist plagued the entire world and thus the creatures nearly eliminated humanity. While in the film version, the creatures were only seen in a certain area of America and were exterminated by the military 2 or 3 days after the Arrowhead Project went wrong. So some of the creatures was the arachne lobster. This was the 50-foot tall lobster-like creature. Dissects its victims in its huge mantis-like claws. It is known for killing Ollie during the escape from the market.
And the
earlier
military guy,
in the film, right. It may have been the creature that killed the biker.
Oh, yeah.
Considering his body was cut in half. It was also known for killing Private Jessup, as he was stabbed 3 times by Mr. McVeigh, the store butcher, and thrown outside as a sacrifice. Then the Behemoth. I know I cannot. I had to have Andrew even try to pronounce it for me because he makes fun of me. There's certain words I can't say.
Me too.
And this is obviously one of them. Say it again.
Behemoth.
I
had to get you to say the people's names, so no judgment.
So also known as the impossibly tall creature, the behemoth is a huge creature with 6 legs. In the novella universe, other than the legs with hundreds of scorpion flies clinging to them, this creature is unseen. Although the creature's exact size is never specified, David gets the impression that it's the size would make a blue whale resemble a trout if both were posed together, and its weight is sufficient to leave 6-foot deep footprints the size of large SUVs in solid concrete. And this was the creature that's walking across the highway in the movie.
The huge one.
Then you have the gray widowers, which are deadly spider-like predators, each about the size of a small dog. These creatures have the ability to produce corrosive web strands, which can burn through materials like cloth and flesh. In both the novella and the film, they normally simply kill their prey with their acidic web strands. But in the film universe, they also have the ability to capture and lay hundreds of eggs in a living human host.
Which is so much scarier.
And the eggs take about a day to hatch, which I thought it was just disgusting that he was still alive.
I know.
Initially. I get freaked out about people who are still alive when things terrible like that are happening to them.
And he's like, I could feel them inside me. I'm like, no.
I know.
Oh, God. Spiders freak me out. Yeah.
They are known for killing Mike Hatland by spraying him in the face, Bobby Eggleton by lassoing his leg, Myron LaFleur by tearing his face off, Ambrose Cornell and Stephanie Drayton. Remember, she was the one that was in the house by the tree in the web. However, in the novella, they killed Jim Groden, Hattie Thurman, Buddy Eggleton, Mike Hatland, and Dan Miller. So Dan Miller survives goes into the vehicle in the movie, but he dies. There's a Taro buzzard. These are nocturnal pterosaur-like creatures with 4 wings. Although Taro buzzards usually only eat scorpion flies, it will also attack humans who get too close. One of these creatures killed a man named Tom Smalley by devouring the flesh on his neck. Then you have the scorpion flies. These are the small, plump, 2 feet long flying wasp-like creatures which swarm over the store windows at night. These creatures have pink, burnt flesh-colored skin, and their eyes are stalks protruding from their heads. They're attracted to light. The flying monsters have a lethal neurotoxin that causes massive swelling and suffocation, and that's what kills Sally. Remember, she gets stung and then she puffs up and everything. Then you had the tentacles from Planet X, squid-like tentacles that kill Norm in the storage room.
It's like
they
the
had
first
the
thing we
suction
see.
cups, right? It's unknown what type of creature the tentacles are attached to. I'm all thinking maybe Cthulhu or something. Then a tentacle is either severed or separated from the mist. It decomposes into a foul-smelling liquid. You have a killer kite, which is like a dinosaur-sized kite-like creature. It's kind of glimpsed flying in the mist. It only appeared in the novella universe.
Mm-hmm.
You have a green kite, which is a large green creature, resembles a grossly misshapen dragonfly. This is what lands on the hood of the Scout, which was in the novella. A terrapede, which was a huge centipede-like creature. David Drayton was stabbing it with a torch while his son was trapped in a corner. In the novella, they live in trees while eating tentacles or tentacles eating them, preying on each other. So they had other creatures, large spider-like creatures, hundreds of scorpion flies, and they just go on more to say what they have done with it. So also they said similar creatures also appear in From Buick 8, which is also by Stephen King. It's a book. I read that long ago, so I didn't remember it. And I was just trying to see if there was anything else. And then that's where it says about the Toadash. Due to its similar qualities, some Stephen King fans believe that the mist dimension is the Toadash darkness from Dark Tower series, a dark void filled with monsters. Specifically, I think books 6 and 7, perhaps. I'm not mistaken, but
I love those connections.
I love the connections.
Me too.
I love how the universe is all connected together.
Me too.
In some way, some form.
So guys, did you, besides the ending, what did you think about the creatures? Does that bother you? If you rewatched the movie recently, do you remember it being anything of note back in 2007, which I doubt? Like I said, we were used to that type of CGI back then, so I don't think it would have been something that stuck out at the time. Like I said, in the theater, I don't think that stuck out to me at all or bothered me or whatever.
It didn't bother me watching it either time.
And as we wrap up, I do want to ask, which movie specifically do you like the best? Because these were both from 2007, which I think is very fun. So it's like they had the same release year, so they would have been against each other in certain categories if they were nominated for anything. Not that they would have been, because they're more like horror.
I think fantasy, the Mist,
maybe for creatures or for
I think got something more for fantasy or sci-fi or something. I think it was more well received in that arena, more so than like 1408 was.
Yeah, which movie do you guys prefer over the other? If you had to choose between them, kind of like, which one would you nominate for an award?
But I mean, the fact that it made, according to our little magazine here, it made the top 20 of best adaptations.
Both of them did. So
which The Mist
was 9, and then the other one was a little bit.
It was 11.
Yeah, so I actually would reverse it. I like 1408 better.
Oh, as a movie?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I do. Honestly, just because I like the subject matter better, I would always gravitate towards a haunted thing versus like a sci-fi creature feature type of thing. Yeah, in my opinion.
And I also kind of almost wonder, like 1408, and this could just be a stretch of it. In the short story, Mike Enslin is haunted for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if our film Mike Enslin is haunted for the rest of his life as well. Does it follow him, or is he able to cope with it because he has his wife, whereas Mike is all alone?
I actually felt like the movie was actually more hopeful. That's because he had his wife. And even though she was kind of upset about hearing the voice and was like, whoa, I still think that they're going to be okay because they have each other now and they have a better understanding. And he finally opened up about him struggling with his daughter's death.
I do have another question about 1408 is what happens next? Like, we know the the short story Mike gives up writing. So his experience in 1408,
I think he's going to go back to writing fiction, personally.
So maybe because he's able to come to terms with his daughter. So I wonder, does Mr. Olin, after this situation, do they close up 1408 forever? Like,
I think now, because of the fire, they're going to be forced to. So it was almost like a good thing in the movie version, because there was some line that Samuel L. Jackson said, like, good boy or good job, because he set it on fire. So now, because
he killed it.
Yes, because you remember Cusack asking, why do they even keep it open? Like, why do they even keep it on the registry or whatever?
It's because
they don't want to call attention to it. Right. They just don't want to really acknowledge it. So now they have to acknowledge it. They have to it's burnt up.
In my opinion, what they should do is close off the whole entire 14th floor.
They should, but they
I
probably
don't think
won't.
the 14th floor should be used for anything. I think they should cut their losses.
In the
They can
story.
increase their rates in the other rooms to make up for those missing rooms and just bypass that. Somehow the
Don't even
elevator
chance
can't
it.
even open.
Yeah.
Because
don't even chance it.
What if there's still a remnant of that evil and it starts permeating into the carpet?
I am in the minority so far. People are saying The Mist is way better in my opinion, mainly for the ending. Richard Brown says The Mist. I like big monsters. See, I just liked the haunting element of 1408. I liked the spookiness. I like stuff like that a little bit.
It's hard for me to pick one over the other because the
different.
content
Yeah,
is just different. I like hauntings, but I also like monster stories. Like I was one that liked The Blob, you know.
I like The Blob. It's just certain, I guess, like monsters with like tentacles and like I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess that is kind of weird.
I guess because I like the H.P. Lovecraft aspect of it and like the alien vibe part that you get. You know, I don't know. I think it's just it's apples and oranges.
It is.
You know, but I do like both of them, and I would give them both 4-star rating, both of them.
Yeah, I would give them a pretty decent rating as well. Probably both
as movies.
Yes. Yeah, I might give The Mist. See, the ending elevates it for me. If it wasn't for the ending, I did like the acting, but I still think like there was some weak spots in terms of some of it came off corny. Like it came off more corny than the Shawshank Redemption. Like if I compare the two movies, I felt like the acting was more natural in the Shawshank Redemption versus The Mist. And also, like I said, the CGI is a weak point, but the ending really elevated it. So because of the ending, it would get a 4-star. Otherwise, I would do it a 3.5. But yeah, the ending saved it for me. And that's very bleak, but whatever. I'm a bleak person, I guess. But 1408, I just like the style, the story, and I thought it was pretty
I like seeing 1408 come to life. I like seeing the room come to life.
Yeah, me too. And I will say, Arlene says The Mist is a well-worn storyline going back to Day of the Triffids. 1408 was more original. That's a good take. That's an interesting take.
And Rockford Project says, I think a lot of people will find 1408 a bit too strange. Yeah. But strange because you're looking into that person's mindset, you know, so.
Well, because you never know what's happening in the room. It's never even explained or
well, and also too, it's
on.
not going to be the same for anybody. Like everybody's experience is going to be different. Your experience would be different from my experience because they're going to take. I think the room knows what
upsets you,
and it's feeding off you because it wants to eat you. It wants to eat
your soul. Yeah, exactly. We get on the same wavelength. The soul. Yeah, totally.
I'm gonna eat your soul.
Well, guys, I really enjoyed both. I was really happy to revisit them both because it had been over 10 years. I saw them both in 2007. It's the last time I saw both of them, I think.
Well, and it also gave you an opportunity to read some other short stories or shorter fiction by him.
Quick, easy reads. I will say I do prefer like, you know, a short story like Big Driver, I think I like better than both of those stories because it was very impactful, very emotional. And again, we're talking about, guys, a short story by Stephen King, and it's contained in the Full Dark No Stars.
I cannot recommend that
collection.
In fact, I read that collection and immediately bought the book for Kelsi because I was like, she is going to love, because it is probably the first time. Now, of course, there's only 4 stories in it, but it is the first time that I've read a collection where I loved all 4 stories, like the whole entire collection, you know, because they're so good. And actually 3 of the stories are adaptations.
I've seen, I read and watched 1922, which I do feel like the story was pretty, the movie was pretty accurate to the story, minus like one thing.
It followed the source material pretty closely.
But yeah, that's a great collection. And I will say I liked The Big Driver was my favorite story in that collection, but it was the hardest to read in terms of how it impacted me. And I will say that I liked, like, just to reiterate it, I liked it a little bit better than these short stories. Not that they're bad. It's just that I've read other short stories that are better. Now, 1408 reminds me a little bit about how I felt about reading the short story Children of the Corn. So short, but we're talking about way shorter than 1408.
But impactful.
Short, different. The movie
broadens it.
Yes, like, so that's how I felt about 1408. Like, wow, the
Mhm.
movie really, really expanded on this. Same thing with Children of the Corn. I was expecting this kind of longer thing, similar to the movie, but no, the movie expands. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like, we're talking about the Children of the Corn story is like 5 pages. It feels like maybe 10. I don't know. It was short. So that's what 1408 reminded me of. That the story is so much shorter than what the movie does with it.
Okay, so we have some of our guests are signing off.
Bye,
Thank y'all very
everybody.
much for being with us.
If you want to know about real quick about our August read, just to remind you guys,
not August, July.
I'm sorry, July. I'm skipping ahead. Our July read, we're going to have our chat in August. That's why I jumped the gun. But our July King read is It. I know it's long, but if you guys have already read it, join us for the chat. We'll be talking about the, of course, the book, but we'll also be talking about the 2 different adaptations. So, of course, that encompasses the 2 new movies that were released in the 2000s.
And then the TV version.
And the TV Tim Curry version.
Yes.
Which is a 2-parter as well.
Yes.
But it's sold together as if you buy the DVD.
I have it on DVD.
Me too. So that's what we'll be discussing, and spoilers for all 3 will be talked about, and we'll have the chat at the beginning of August. So it'll be on August
7th. August 7th.
Yes, Sunday,
August
7th. 2 p.m. Central Time, which is what we did today. So same time.
So we appreciate y'all being with us today.
Right. Yes, we so appreciate it, guys. So, and for this time, that's it for us, right?
Yes.
Till next time, what can they do?
Keep on killing it.
Keep on killing it. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.